Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're going to review Fallout 4 VR after 100 hours, more specifically 111.7 hours. Now, I only played vanilla Fallout 4, so no mods, but now that I've beaten the game, I am interested in playing some of the DLC, so I will be downloading some mods. If anyone has any recommendations, please comment on this video what mods you think I should get. And if this video gets lots of views, then I'll do a DLC review along with some mods. Fallout 4 currently has a mixed review status on Steam. It originally released back on December 11th, 2017. It is a Steam exclusive, and one important thing to know is that the game originally was designed as basically an HTC Vive exclusive. As some of you may know, Bethesda had a very antagonistic relationship towards the Oculus Rift because of a legal battle they had at the time. They did bring Oculus Rift support later on. I can confirm it works perfectly fine on the Quest 2, the Quest 3, and Windows Mixed Reality. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is not just for the history lesson, but because it's important to know, because it does affect gameplay. Probably the most important thing you can do if you're on the Quest and playing this game is that you'll need to change the Pip-Boy to be a projection. I found it impossible to manage the inventory without this setting just because of the joystick control. So if you're using any VR headset with joystick controls, choose the projection type for the Pip-Boy. The other important thing to know is that if you're using the VAT system, and you do that by pressing B on the Quest touch controllers, is that you will teleport via the left joystick when you're in VATS. So if you're trying to run and gun and use VATS, just be very careful. I did find the forced teleportation to just be a little bit tricky, especially when using joysticks. And obviously if you're using a melee build, this is something you're gonna have to work around with. Like I mentioned, if you look at the Steam reviews for this game, they're all over the place. There's a lot of recent negative reviews, and this had a lot of negative reviews on release as well. A lot of the negative reviews are because, you know, this game doesn't work on my VR headset, or I had this issue, I had that problem. Here's what I can say. I played this game on 2 PCs and 5 different VR headsets. And keep in mind, I'm talking about vanilla Fallout 4 VR, no mods. And yes, I did have some technical issues. The game did crash about, I want to estimate, 25 times in my over 100 hours of gameplay, and that might seem a lot, and it is, but it really is only about 1 every 4 hours, so it wasn't too bad. And I've read conflicting stories on how often the game crashes. Several people have said I played the game over 100 hours and it's crashed 0 times. I'm gonna advise anyone playing this game to save often, so make no mistake about it, this is an absolutely great game that is best played in VR. There is no other way I would try playing this game. Fallout 4 Pancake non-VR is rated very positively, and I think a lot of the recent reviews for Pancake Fallout 4 have been very positive. A lot of retrospectives talk about how this game was undervalued. People were expecting Fallout New Vegas and they got something different and they didn't like it, but upon reflection, I think a lot of the recent reviews on Fallout 4 have been super positive because the game is very good. It's a very immersive open world to explore and discover, and there's so many good storylines in this game and so many amazing places to be immersed in. However, this game has lots of issues which has turned off a lot of people, and rightfully so in many cases. So I definitely understand the negative reviews, but do not let that stop you from trying this game out. If you have a VR headset and a VR capable PC, then you owe it to yourself to try Fallout 4 in VR, because it is one of the best VR experiences ever, period. And I will say that the more that you play this game, the more you will like it. It kind of has a rough start, almost like Borderlands 2. The game starts out and you have very few perks. Your guns are weak, your guns are not accurate, and you don't have any of the cool stuff like the power armor or the Gatling laser or the nuka bombs. But as you explore, you meet interesting characters, you get involved in very unique storylines, and you collect collect a bunch of stuff that's super cool. And melee builds suck early on, but they're a ton of fun later on with Power Fist and the Shish Kebab, and you definitely get to live that power fantasy, especially later on in the game once you've leveled up and have the right perks and have the right equipment. You'll obliterate enemies and the wastelands will be your playground. So this game does have a rough start, and on top of that, some of the game mechanics, some of the VR interactions take a while to get used to as well. And inventory management is something that you'll just have to get used to. It's never going to be fun to do that, but it's always going to be necessary. And you'll have to sort through your inventory. It helps to do it via weight or via damage, and then putting weapons you like into your quick inventory, aka the weapon wheel, and putting everything else into the workshop. And upgrades are very important, whether to your weapons or to your armor or to your power suit, and adhesives and aluminum will be ingredients you'll constantly be on the lookout for and always want to get. Settlements are probably something that most people want to avoid at all costs, but at the very minimum you'll probably need to at least do a few of them where you create some defenses and at least try to make a few structures to try to make it look better. But unfortunately there is a lot of grinding if you want to build up your settlement, and trying to do that for more than one place is a nightmare, especially with the controls in VR, so I don't really recommend you trying to do that. The good news is that most of that is optional and you really don't need to do all those Minutemen quests. Besides the crashes and the VR controls and some of the problems with the early game in Fallout 4 VR, the other big issue is performance. I want to say I played 60, probably 70 hours of this game on the Quest 3 with my RTX 3080, so the vast majority of the game I played with that setup, and for the most part it did run at a steady 72 frames per second. And while I didn't have the highest graphical settings for every option, I did lower it a bit for a few things. However, while it did run fine for the most part, it did have sudden frame rate drops, and there were just certain locations where the game did have problems. So while mostly it ran at 72 frames per second, it also ran poorly in some areas, in some scenes, usually when lots of enemies were on scene, or just some areas for some inexplicable reason. I should state that this game does have full locomotion along with teleportation, smooth or snap turning. One important setting to know about is you do have a world scale setting, and I highly recommend changing this to the lowest possible if you are playing seated. And this is important to know because there is one quest in particular where this comes up, and if you don't have it set up correctly, you will be locked from progression and unable to complete the quest. Specifically, there is an institute quest where you have to talk to a person behind the door, and if you're not scaled correctly, that person will not interact with you. You have to be able to interact high enough for them to respawn behind the door. Another important thing to know is that your weapons are used in only your dominant hand, so you cannot two-hand weapons. All your weapons are in your dominant hand only. You cannot go guns akimbo or anything like that. The other thing to know is that swimming is very unintuitive. Basically, you have to kind of like reach out and grab and pull yourself forward. The good news is that there is not a lot of swimming in this game, thankfully. The last important thing to know for VR is, like I've already kind of said, the DLC does not work by default. Now, it is possible to add the DLC without any mods, but the problem is that they don't work properly without mods, so you will need to download mods in order to get the DLC to work correctly in Fallout 4 VR. My recommendation is to play Fallout 4 VR without any mods at first. Just play the vanilla experience, test it out, tinker with the settings. Keep in mind what I said about the world scale and also about the projection setting for the Pip-Boy, and just work from there. Don't try to install a bunch of mods at the start, at the very beginning of the game, because then you'll come into troubles and you won't know whether it's the mods or something else. And I have to say that playing this game with different PC setups, originally on a 1060 and now on an RTX 3080, originally on the Oculus Rift, and now on the Quest 3, the game looks so much better now. So if you played the game many years ago and haven't touched it since, this might be something that you want to come back to with a better headset or a better PC. With the clarity of the Quest 3, this game looks fantastic to me. I had a blast playing this game. This is one of the best VR experiences I have ever had, but it wasn't perfect. I did experience several issues. Like I said, I would estimate I experienced about 25 crashes, and some of the VR interactions were very frustrating, like the inventory management or like swimming. There's lots of things here that are very clunky, but like I said, I would never play this game any other way. Being in the wastelands, you're just so immersed in the game world, and there's just no other gaming experience like it. VR is the future of gaming, and quite frankly, there just isn't a whole lot of VR games with this much meat to the bone. So many unforgettable places and characters and storylines. So this is a very difficult game to score. Obviously, I highly recommend it. I do think it's a must experience in VR, but rating it is a little bit of a different story because, like I said, the highs are very high, but the lows are pretty low as well. If I have to rate it, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. I hope you enjoyed this video review. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.
You do know she's most likely a synth, yes? If you are more than a hired gun, perhaps we can stop this before it's too late.
Stockton's daughter is a synth?
Why else do you think we attacked her caravan? After testing, we have well over a 70% confidence level of our initial diagnosis. I'd have to perform an autopsy to be sure.
I'll give you a fair hearing.
How considerate. What would you do if your family was destroyed by a synth right in front of you when you were but a child? Would you roll over and accept it? Or would you do something about it?
I've been there, but I haven't resorted to torturing innocents.
Casualties are inevitable. It may not look like it, but we're at war. As long as the Institute walks invisibly amongst us, they strike without warning and control us from the shadows. I've dedicated my life to devising a test to detect these hidden synths, to root them out so they can be extinguished. Isn't that a goal worth fighting for?
You can't seriously want to kill all the synths.
We most certainly do, but we have to find them first. A living synth is indistinguishable from a human by any medical test yet devised. But it turns out psychology can detect a difference. Enter the SAFE test. The test is in its infancy, but through sacrifice and perseverance, our success rate is improving.
But your methods are barbaric. It's torture.
To improve the SAFE test, intense psychological pressure must be applied to our test subjects. It is distasteful, but necessary. Covenant is many things. A refuge for the broken people left in the wake of the Institute's rampages. A place of safety and healing. But most importantly, it is our one chance to end this age of paranoia. I will make you a deal. If you let me dispose of Stockton's synth and continue our work, I'll match whatever reward you were offered.
I've had my fill of crazy on this contract. No deal.
Fortunate for me, I wasn't talking to you.
You side with this nut job, and we're going to have a serious, deadly problem.
That's a deal I won't accept.
Then you'll just have to kill me.
Dr. Chambers.
Everything I've done has been for the greater good.